Thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day, and we'll do the same without wasting a single second of your time. Bada bing, bada boom, we go into the chart. So as we know, Bitcoin got that rejection of that 886 level after coming up into some resistance levels and slammed to the downside, hitting the point of control, meandering around all last week and slamming down further into these lows of the 0.65 of the diagonal pitch fan we've had price in for over a year. Does it continue to go lower? Does it hit this 0.65 one more time, hitting these relatively equal lows and taking out some of the long players and finding a bounce level at this 39k region? We do have some support levels over here. Once again, we have some 39k 39.7 support where we drop down out of the range, the point of control down here at 38.9, the final line in the sand, and a lot of confirmation there. On the CME futures, we have basically a gap region that we could be coming back to. We wicked off of that opening gap and bounced out as people closed out their shorts there, and as we open and the CME, do we come down and recover this gap as the Asian liquidity opens with Asia on Monday for the weekly candle close? We rejected off this point of control. We still have some regions up here that we could come up to after that. Do we come lower or not? That is the question. Let's go take a look at the liquidations. What is the liquidations? Well, people lock that liquidity into the charts to get burnt to a crisp by the market maker, and we get to see where those liquidations are with the liquidation data here that's free resource. So you can look in the last 24 hours, UMA had a bunch of liquidations, 5.45, Doge, also some degens up in the altcoin space, Sol, ETH, a lot of shorts getting wrecked here as they shorted late. The late shorters have that recovery into their late shorting as they get bearish and try to position over the weekend. So if we look at the liquidation data, also the altcoins also seeing very little movement as they're paralyzed. I don't even know what Ron coin is. Let's go see in the last day, actually, that was a week. Ron, Doge, Aster. So getting a little bit of a bounce as Bitcoin holds this range for the alt. So let's go ahead and look at the heat map for Bitcoin. This is similar to High Block if you want to check it out. CoinGlass.com has a free heat map you don't need to spend any money on, and we can see that there is 74 million up here in that 42k region. Do we come and sweep up here before going and reclaiming that gap? Looks like we could be coming up into this region at that 42.4 mark to grab some of this liquidity up here. 73 million at that 42.4, 42.3, and 42.2. So we got about a good 100 million up in here, 150 million up in this region for them to get on these late shorters. A lot of people positioning into shorts over this consolidation, expecting the move down. So do we get the move up before we go down now? Let's go into the charts. We are seeing that it could possibly come down to this region, but as we hold this range, let's rethink this idea. Low liquidity weekend and all. We're approaching the let's go ahead and look at what positions are open right now so we can do the liquidity inspection before we switch over to momentum here. This free tool is ML Applications Liquidation Level. Set your threshold to 0.1 to see every 100k trader. Okay, so we have a large amount of 100xers here opening up in the last 12 hours, is it? 10 hours. The last 10 hours, a lot of 100xers opening up here as they come up into these short pools that we were just talking about. If we go to the lower time frame, Let's see how many more are apparent. Shout out to anyone joining me. Booyah. Okay, so as you can see, these are the 100 extras that are opening up. They came down, grabbed these guys in the Asian session, then came back up, just doing their regular sweep. Could be coming up to this region based off of what we're seeing on this 3-day time frame. So we have a large amount of shorts up here to reclaim before we go down some more, perhaps. So somebody's got to get paid on the side of the trade. So are we going up into these regions to that 42 region before dropping lower? You have a relatively equal high over here at that 42,150 region. Do we come up to that before dropping into the gap? That's what I'm seeing right now in this moment in time. Let's go ahead and delete that and look to the higher time frame of the weekly on the liquidity heat map here. We got some more up in here, but looking to recover. Main thing is on the higher time frame pools. So if you go to these 3 months, you do have some more billions down here in that sub 39k region that we only started to wick into. So do we recover that gap, the CME gap, and come down to these billions below? What we saw with the 70 billion up above here pales in comparison to what is lurking below to stop out all of these longs. So trying to see if that defense line will be defended well down in that 39k region. We got that push down that we were looking at to that region, so we're going to see if that comes for that double bottom play. Now is the time to throw on our momentum indicators and see what is what. Link in the description for more about that. Scroll down to features. You can toggle at your leisure. See Bitcoin at its bottom. Before we knew it was a bottom, we scoped it out because we were getting the rocket ships at 15k on our indicator, and the rest is history. Stochastic array, trend cloud, baselines, and more. Dynamic alerts to your phone to keep you plugged into all the probabilities as they occur. And let's do it now. All right, so going to the higher time frame, daily cloud. So we were talking about the daily cloud curvature from this 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock angle potentially abating and starting to see our way on down. So this was also apparent first and foremost. If you look back on the streams since December 15th, we were talking about this cross down event of the baselines. What are the baselines? Well, they are your first sign of reversal. You can read about them on the website, but these were leading us to the idea that the upside was not going to sustain for long. And so sure enough, just like April, it came up for a stop hunt and then eventually started to come back down. Boom. We were saying it could be as easy as July's cross down event, but not nearly as easy. But it still did do the same, came up and came down. Now we're back below this level. So does this 3-day continue in a 18% correction fashion? The trend-based fibs do have that 236 being respected at the 42,470 region beneath that previous support region. So even if we come up to that and reject at this 236, we could be coming to lower prices down here in that 38.8 or 39.8. More likely than not, I would love to see a bounce from that 786 region and then start to make our way back up to these highs for a double top scenario. So that is the 3-day insinuation of downside. So the narrative's shifting, potentially speaking, on the 3-day. Coming to the daily, so that daily cloud we just talked about. Does the daily cloud and the super trend that we was holding at that 706 level continue to hold or not? Baselines are crossing down and price not yet reclaiming them. just yet until this daily candle closes. So looking at the oscillator, you have money flow coming above the RSI, suggesting a bit of fatigue potential, and the stochastic avoiding takeoff. Williams still resetting in a manner here, and as we go lower, let's go to the 22 hour, getting a cross up event here and reclaiming the weighted moving average. The 200 weighted is gravitating to price more quickly, so we're starting to insinuate possibly holding that if we can reclaim that on the 22 hour. Also getting some money flow fatigue. What do we mean by money flow fatigue? Well, we talk about it here a lot, where this money flows above the RSI. Similar fashion here, this gray line hovering above the RSI. When this goes above, you tend to drop down to the RSI. In similar fashion, when you have the money flow beneath the RSI, similar here, it comes up to the RSI. So that generally plays out. There are times where the RSI comes down to the money flow, but even in this case, you went up a little bit to at least protect your entry before slamming to the downside. So here we're getting fatigued while going sideways, so this is insinuating a deeper pullback to that region. So this is going in line with the narrative for the bearish trend-based fibs to the downside continuation. Same with the 12 hour money flow, also bearish, as you see here. We're getting in an oversold state on the Williams, getting that fertile crescent. Does the MACD come down and say hello to get that supercharge from the MACD? The last time the MACD came that low to the Williams was a while ago. If we go back in time for that leading MACD, the MACD came down and said what's up to the Williams after it was meandering, and that was back in November. So we didn't see a huge drop like that, where the MACD came down beneath on the 12 hour in some time. The MACD has been in the RSI domain since then, never to come down. We've come down ever so slight into the Williams domain, but for the most part, so this is the first time we've actually come back into the Williams domain since November. So do we come down a little bit further? We very well could. I'm streaming right now, so sorry, my son wakes up in the night wanting me to put him back to bed, but that's one reason why I don't stream in the night and why my volume is so low right now. So if we look at this 12 hour, also insinuating bearishness, coming to the 6 hour, getting that hidden bullish, or not hidden, just regular bullish on the 6 hour money flow here from this low to that low. So are we going to see a money flow insertion to that upside path? This is where it's starting to get a bit tricky, as you see different things telling you different signals and which one to believe. So if we come to this 6 hour cloud, the 6 hour cloud is thinning. Do we get that push up that we were seeing on the liquidity a moment ago? We'll come to that as we get deeper into the lower time frame. So the 4 hour cloud holding its mid-range zone at the 50 level, this 4 hour stochastic overbought, Williams coming up, MACD coming up, and you have this cloud coming down and starting to curve in a manner here. Even if we do come up to those pools we were talking about, those relative highs up here at 42,150 to equal that liquidity we were talking about on this lower time frame here, this 24 hour, coming up into these, it's actually the 3-day, these pools up here at 42.4. Do we come back to those? That's also a stab at the cloud, and then we could possibly stab the cloud and then come lower. That's kind of in line with my initial narrative looking at just the liquidity. If you look at the 4 hour time frame, we also have a cross up event of the baselines that are suggesting that you drift up a little bit higher, but we haven't gotten that double bottom just yet, so I'm not keen to long this, even though we do look like we are going up here. Cloud is starting to turn on the hourly. That's what this little yellow line is insinuating. So do we come up into this wick zone and start to take out some of this liquidity one last time? Possibly coming up into this resistance level over here, this range we dropped out of. I wouldn't be surprised if we came up into the 42,355 for good measure and then slammed it down into this 39K 786 level, and then possibly we could find some long opportunity, some mitigation stuff down in this region. So that is basically where we're seeing the hourly cloud pushing up here, and possibly seeing that 6-hour money flow burst, but then following a 12-hour bearish money flow div to the downside. And that is that. So let's go into the higher analysis, looking at total and whatnot. So total, respecting the bearish trend-based fibs, after previously putting in nukes and then starting to come lower, do we possibly come down to the 0.65? We have yet to come down to those levels. All right, and looking at total 3, we're seeing total 3 kind of hold in this structure at the 6.5 of the bullish trend-based fibs. Doesn't want to give up the ghost just yet on the altcoins. So once we break out of this 473 billion on the alts, then possibly you will drop all the way down to the wicks here and test that 236 at 446 billion. So that depends on if Bitcoin gets the bounce at that 39K or not. If it doesn't, then it will drop down. If not, we could see some bullish burst back up. We did get that C wave down to the downside we were talking about. We were talking about an ABC like this back here, and we got that ABC. So now we just need a pullback, possible continuation in the other direction, like so. So do we get a reaction in the pullback with Bitcoin for that same double bottom effect? So how does it react off of these wicks? Let's go ahead and take a look at the 4-hour. First, we have to look at the dominance for Bitcoin. Bitcoin dominance, cloud coming down to this region. You're kind of holding the range, not really going anywhere. Cloud coming down to the dominance level. So the dominance unsure if it wants to take off or not at this retrace zone. Getting the cross up event of the 12-hour, suggestive of what we were just putting out, what we deleted, coming up here to the upside for the dominance. That would put your alts at risk. The USDT dominance coming back after we had that 382 bounce off the cloud here on the 12-hour, insinuating bullishness. We're getting a little bit of a pullback here, and we also have a cross down event of the 12-hour. So as the USDT dominance drops, this is when Bitcoin goes up, people putting the USDT back into trades. All right, so if it continues on its higher path up to here, that would be people getting knocked into USDT. So it's the opposite of Bitcoin at the moment. So as Bitcoin goes up, if Bitcoin goes down, then this will slam down to here. Okay. So we're looking, we already wicked into this region before. That's weakening that ever so slightly for that 6.15% level. Do we come back down and test this region? We have a little bit of a gap here to recover? How does it react off this gap on the 12-hour time frame? Let's look at the Dixie real quick. We were looking for the Dixie to potentially retrace back down into this region. There's a little gap down here for it to bounce off of potential support level at 103 even. So do we get this pullback on the Dixie, allowing the dollar to for risk on assets to continue a little bit higher for false move Monday, only to then rip it to these levels? We won't be so dramatic about it, but we'll just say, at least for Monday, are we going to see the dollar pull back some more here before bouncing up into these regions? Looking at NQ, you have like Tesla earnings and stuff coming soon. We had this deviation level for NQ. We broke through the point of control over here, and then we created a new point of control, and we broke through that during the New York session. Where is that? Yeah. So during the New York session, we burst through the cloud, and then we came to these highs. We're starting to get nukes on our oscillator here for NQ. So does the Tesla earnings and everything start to surge us up to these levels, only to meander around and then start to drop down? Do we see an initial drop first before you come up to these regions? Start to relieve some of that pressure and then head up into these levels, into the earnings. You have a lot of sells selling off here in the volume profile. The math was doing the math stuff with this Fibonacci trend-based fibs, holding the range, breaking out above the 786, and then we were gone into these levels up to the 2 and closed. That would have had you at hello from that pullback here on Thursday, leading into Friday. You would have had all this information on your Fibonacci. So do we start to pull back into the 1618 and then head up into these levels? That is the question. Or did they just like fake it out, come down just a little bit, and then just go into the pre-earning stuff early? We'll see. We don't know where that news will lead us, whether the catalyst will be to the upside or the downside. We don't know. Looks like they are expecting higher highs, so they are buying into it. There's a lot of buys into this region, but we'll see. Oscillator expressing fatigue for now, so do we get a little bit of a pullback to that 1618 region? Okay. So this is what we're trying to look for Bitcoin. Does it get a bit of a bounce at these regions? Let's go ahead and recap and take some questions if you have any. Alright, so you have this bearish trend-based fib from the impulse up here. Basically your impulse, your retrace, has all the math inbound for where it wants to go. This is why it bounced off the 706 to the pixel at 40,267. That was also a CME and a wick level from over here that you're also touching. So this is also recovered from here, and you could be coming down into these regions. These are some daily support candles from way back in the day where we dropped out of the range here from May 5th. So these levels here are daily candle closes and resistance points that if we dip down and reclaim, we could be looking for a point of control over here at 39 even. No lower than that for candles closing beneath this range, or we are coming down further. So I would expect some sort of defense to be rallied at that level. But that doesn't mean limit buy. It means look for a divergence and see how it reacts. So do you come down to this one area at the 38,889 region and wick off that with the mitigation wick back up? We will see. We will see. So we're looking for, in the interim leading into the weekly candle close, potentially seeing some manipulation to the upside to stop out some people here, and coming up into this candle here. There is a gap up in this region here if you use this here. So we can come up into this and reject off it. We already previously wicked into that. Do we come up to here and reject on down? That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Let's go see if you have any comments or questions. Hey, what's up, Cluve? Yo, 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 yo. So that's what we are looking for. Respecting this 236. Does it respect and reject or not at 42,470? Very clean levels. Some gaps, confluence. So if you're possibly considering a short, you can use these accordingly. Not financial advice. You do you. And then possibly coming down to clear that gap. Once again, reminder of the gap. You look at that BTC 1 for the futures and coming down into this gap here. Okay. Okie dokie. So that's about it for now. We'll be streaming after I take my son to school in the morning, so it's not that far away. Another 10 hours, 10 or 11 hours away from now. We'll see how it holds. What does it do in the night when I'm sleeping? Do we wake up down here? Are we still going to be up in here consolidating and playing around with this area before the open? We will see. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it, folks. Thank you for coming on into the live and sharing your essence with me in this eternal moment of which we all share an inextricable and inexorable part. Thank you for doing your part, for coming on in each and every day, and we'll do the same, bringing the fire, the accuracy, the precision, all that fun stuff, and we'll catch you on the flip.